Thanks for coming. I'll review the champions. Defensive champions for our rivalry game was Chase Young, Devon Hamilton, B.B. Landers, Jonathan Cooper up front. And Coop played exceptionally well. Great effort, energy. Linebackers was Tuff Borland. And then the back end of our defense, Brendan White, graded champion, and so did Jeffrey Okuda. Player of the game was Malik Harrison. Had arguably his best game as a Buckeye and was all over the field, had 5 tackles, assists, 2 tackles for loss, and a sack. On offense, offense champions, you have offensive line, all 5. Isaiah Prince played exceptionally well. Pridgeon, Malcolm Pridgeon, Michael Jordan, Demetrius Knox, and Thayer Munford. And once again, the respect we had for that defensive line to play the way they did, they played outstanding. The quarterback did fairly well too. He was 20-31 for almost 400 yards, 396, 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and once again tying that in with the offensive line, 0 sacks. Running backs played hard. Mike had 13 carries for 96 yards, and J.K. had 12 carries for 46 yards. Also did well in pass protection. Tight end Luke Farrell played very well. Once again, he had to block some of those defensive ends a few times and had 2 catches for 16 yards, and the receivers were exceptional. As a group, they had 378 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns. Against the #1 pass defense in America. You had Johnny Dixon, grade out champion, KJ, Terry McLaurin, Chris Olave, who we've been talking about him for some time now. He had 2 receptions, 2 touchdowns, and a block punt, which we'll talk about here in a minute. And the player of the game had a career day, 6 receptions, 192 yards receiving, and 2 touchdowns, and that's Parrish Campbell. Special Forces Award, Special Teams Awards, player of the game. Let's go special efforts, 7 Banks. As I told him, he got a gift. He said, here's a ball and a block punt, go run fast and score. But he did. Amir Reep, really exceptional effort. I called them the heroes, and heroes come cheap nowadays. You jump high and run fast, and people call you a hero. No, they're not a hero. The heroes are the guys like Amir Reep that were incredible effort on KJ's punt return, blocked 2 people, and just exceptional effort. I'm really happy to see him play like that. KJ Hill with a 22-yard punt return, and our kicker, Blake, was 10 on 10 on kicks, and really did a nice job on kickoffs. Average hang time was 4, which is, needed to do the most. He played your very best, and he did. Players of the game, Chris Olave, elite player as a freshman, and you got to be careful anointing a guy that soon, but he's tough. He also runs down, I think he ran down on 7 or 8 kickoffs for us. Justin Hilliard's as good a special teams player that I've been around. Had a key block also on the hands team. And then Keandre Jones really had a hell of a day. Just all starts on 3 units, and we called him the 4-6 guy, 4 to 6. Effort-wise, he was phenomenal. Honored to represent the East in the Big Ten championship game. That one's over, and getting ready for a team that plays excellent defense. I just got done watching them for about 3 hours, and I've not studied their offense, but obviously they got an elite quarterback, and they do things very well. So with that said, I'll answer your questions for you.
Front row left, Mitch. Urban, you've talked a little bit lately about Dwayne and his development as a team leader. I was wondering, can you point to one point in the season, one play, one game, one period of time where you thought, okay, this guy's going to be the leader that I want him to be?
One point, that'd be hard. I think the Maryland game was one that he dropped his pads and dropped some other things probably too, and I shouldn't say that. But he dropped his pads and at the toughest time in the game against, once again, a defense, very good defense, and got that at yard. The job of a quarterback, and I can't tell you how many times we've told him, and I've told him, and I've told him, the job of the quarterback is to get a first down, to move the chains.
So that's what it was about. More than anything was being able to run the ball and get.
I think that's a big part of it. That position is, as you've heard many times around here, is arguably the most unique position in all of sport. What he's asked to do, and if coaches aren't on the field, there's 10 other guys looking at him every snap, and he better give the right answer, and they better trust and believe in him, and our guys certainly do.
What else about leadership qualities? I think some other players talked about how he was quieter early in the season.
He's getting a little bit more to him.
A little bit more vocal, and
yeah, we've noticed a change too. Yeah.
Far left, Lori.
Coach, when we talked about your leaders this year, I think for the most part we've discussed guys who keep things even keel and keep their teammates focused. But who are your energy guys? Who are the guys with high motors whose energy is contagious?
Paris Campbell, Johnny, Terry. On offense, Isaiah Prince has been exceptional at that. And that's J.K. Dobbins is in that category too. On defense, I put Tough Borland in that category. Draymond at times, and Coop.
And Chris Olave's parents showed up for the Michigan game. Did you guys have an inkling that he would have a breakout performance and make one of those phone calls, or was that just sort of coincidence they were there for the rivalry?
Oh. So you're asking do we call the families to come in and give us a little extra juice? That's good. Write that down.
Olave had an inkling that he was a big part of your plan on that day and told his parents.
I'd say as we always do around here, that's been, just like Wyatt Davis is going to get his first start as a Buckeye, and there's a lot of confidence around here because I've been talking about that for 5 weeks now, and he's the next man in, and Chris Olave, you just have seen a gradual. So instead of an inkling, you just see it in practice, and by sheer numbers now with Austin Mack out, he is in the rotation. He's knee deep in the rotation now.
Front row middle, Dave.
Coach, I remember when you were the coach at Florida, when you guys beat Ohio State in the national championship game. After that, you talked about how you use all kinds of things as motivation for your players. And that wasn't just the reason you guys were, but you used a lot of motivational tactics. There seems to be something about you when you're an underdog. So I'm curious what motivational tactics you might have used heading into the Michigan game.
Oh, that's the one, and there wasn't pregame. There actually was a great pregame speech, and it was by Paris Campbell, and that's a 365 game. That's not a one-time shot. That's not a win one for the Gipper type thing. That's we've been working on that one, and that goes from our strength staff to our training staff to summer to spring ball to summer training to training camp. That's a 365 game.
Wyatt Davis looks like he's going to get his chance. Is there anybody else in the mix there, like Bowen? Can you just discuss that a little bit?
Yeah, we're right in the middle of that, but Wyatt Davis will get a start, and then Josh Myers is so close. He's had a great month and a half of practices, and Brendan Bowen was the starting right guard before he got hurt. So he's back to, almost what he was. So this is a big week for all three of those guys. And then the other guy is Josh Albee. You remember about 5 weeks ago, we were down to the last tack, last group of guys, and now we got some depth.
Over here to the right, Clay.
When did Wayne take to film study when did it move from homework assignment to this?
That's a good question for Ryan. I think he's always been that. I think he was very well trained. You'd have to ask Ryan. I know that Bryson, his quarterback coach, as he went up through I told you when I went and saw him in that recruiting trip, and I sat and watched that workout. It wasn't only great performance, but the coaching was fantastic. So he's been pretty well developed.
And if you are a student, how often is that? Is that every day?
If you're a quarterback, it's every day.
And it's always with coach or on your own, or?
Well, it can't be with a coach, but it's every day. There's 20-hour rules and stuff like that, but you're probably a lousy quarterback if you're spending 20 hours getting ready for a game. And so they all have iPads, and he's very, one of the strengths that him and Coach Day have done a good job is identifying, the protections.
Front row middle, Phil.
Urban, since you guys have returned from the bye week, your defense has had a little bit of fluctuation in terms of how it's played. It was okay against Nebraska, very good against Michigan State, obviously not good against Maryland, good again last week. Just where do you sit with where you guys are in the progress you're making defensively?
We're making progress. The pass defense is bothering a lot of people, bothering people and giving up plays. I think rush defense and our linebackers I thought played very well Saturday. Our defense lining, you felt like you kind of controlled the game with the defense line. It's just, the making catches on us, and that's going to be a huge part of this game.
And then other side of the ball, you talked a little bit about the offensive line after the game, but we've seen here in the past when you've had a line build and build and build throughout the season to where at the end it's very good. Are you starting to see that with this group now?
I am. It started whenever. You got a big guy missing now, Demetrius Knox, which is a big hit. But I have seen the consistency, we all have, seen consistency start. I can't give you the exact time, but they're playing very well right now. That was their best. That was one of the best I've seen. And once again, it's all, why would you say that? Well, the respect we had for that team we played.
Do you have a number of the percentage of time Michigan blitzed you guys on Saturday?
I could find that out, but it's a high, I know right out of the chute it was a high percentage. And I can't give you that number.
Second row left, Ari.
Remember I asked you on the call yesterday about the Tate Martell package near the goal line. I don't know if you had more time to review that, but now that Dwayne Haskins is dropping things, I was wondering if that had any impact on the way that you are viewing that package.
It hasn't been decided, and I'm a Tate Martell fan, so I'm pushing it real hard, and we're going to do what's best. But I think your question was, appropriate yesterday, but it's certainly not him, to say, well, it's not working because he's not doing a good job. There's other things involved.
Yeah,
So
not something that's anti-Tate, it's just much as it seemed more necessary that you could need that back.
I want him in the game.
Front row left, Doug.
Urban, obviously, we've seen Chris Olave. I think Teron Vincent had a role on third down in the last game. Tyler Friday, Tariq. There's some freshmen, true freshmen, who are doing some things for you here at the end of the year. That's a highly rated recruiting class. In general, we know what Olave is doing. How's that group coming along?
Good. Josh Proctor is another name that is one of those unsung heroes for us. Taraji Mitchell played one of his best days, just wiping guys out on kickoff. And once again, the unsung heroes that we called them yesterday. And I showed the whole team sat right here, and it was probably 30 minutes of watching the heroes play. And it's called field position. It's called selflessness. Keandre Jones was ridiculous, but he's not a freshman. But a very good class.
And again, what is it you've done a long time for guys this late in the year, some of the first-year guys who just got here? What do you have to see for them to be able to help you? What are you looking for?
Practice and, at this point, it's been decided. It's about 5-6 weeks ago, it's the guys that the care factor, the intensity, Josh Proctor went from a non-productive teammate to a very productive teammate. And it all started with, a couple motivational, inspirational meetings and confrontational meetings. But he's a good kid from a good family and wants to play. And now he's playing at a very high level for us.
And I know you want to look forward, but to not look back. But can you just take us a little bit inside the offensive game planning for that Michigan game? It just seemed like you guys in Week 12 had a great idea of what you wanted to do, and then your players went and executed it. Ryan and Kevin and you and the whole offensive staff, can you give us just a brief look at what last week was like and how it came together with the plan?
Well, it was going to come down to one-on-one matchups. We knew that, and not just a receiver. They're man-free. That's their base coverage. Their second coverage is cover two. And when I say, one-on-one battles, and you win the battle, you win the war. And we have enough guys win the battle, you win the war. And that goes from Isaiah Prince blocking their number 3 to Thayer Mumford blocking her 15, and then also the inside guys blocking number 10, who's a hell of a player for them. But the one-on-one matchups, our guys did it. Heck, obviously you saw it. And we worked extremely hard on that, but you also have talented guys that really care.
Front row right, Bill.
What makes KJ Hill unique?
He's one of the toughest. He's a real tough guy. He's got a little arrogance to him, and he's very talented. He's not as fast as some of these other guys, but he's a student of the game. He's one of those guys that understands space, understands leverage, and he's got great ball skills.
And this is your 4th time at the Big Ten Championship game. Given the circumstances of this year, the ups and downs, how special is it for you to be back in this situation?
Only special if you win it. So it is a Coach Mick and I talk about that, about what is the objective. I used to say compete for championships in November, and he went a step further and said get to Indy. And now we're in Indy, and so go win it.
And can you just give your impressions of Northwestern, what you've studied so far?
Yeah, their coach and I have been friends for a long, long time. I think he's one of the best coaches in college football. I don't think he is. He's one of the best coaches in college football. And his kids play like that. I know Coach Hankowitz since he was at Colorado, and Mick McCall, I've known him since he was a high school coach in Denver. And they're just great people that coach their tails off, and their players are a reflection of their staff.
Front row right, Tim.
Yeah, Urban, following up on that, specifically defensively, What is it that you see from them that just stands out? I mean,
They keep it in front of you. They're, they're very smart guys. They, obviously, I don't want to get into too much technical, but it's just they understand it's all tied together, and they keep the ball in front of you. I don't know I'll probably get that here in a minute, but they're big plays. You just don't see big hits against them, and they're primarily a zone coverage team, and they keep the ball in front of you. And sometimes that's, nowadays that's harder than a team that you know is going to be man coverage across the board.
Wyatt Davis, we've talked about him a little bit, but here you are going into a Big Ten championship game and starting a guy for the first time. What are the, I don't know, what's the anxiety level taking that into account? And what have you seen from him specifically the last several weeks that made you talk about him so much?
Just practice. I'm sure you've heard that many times. All of a sudden you just see the guy. We have inside drill every Tuesday, and you just saw this, this kid, a highly recruited guy that was a little lost in the weeds his freshman year, and fatigue would often get him. And once he figured that out, came from one of the best programs in America, in California. But just a guy that's he's a rugged guy, and he's been scratching and clawing for playing time ever since probably 5-6 weeks ago, and it's been close. But we just don't want to disrupt the flow of the 5 guys that are in there.
And one other thing, I get this question all the time. How are you doing?
Good.
What are your plans?
Good.
And then Saturday, the TV camera seemed to be on you as much as it was the action
Good.
on the field. And just, what are your plans
Good.
post whatever? Yeah.
Good.
So you're good.
Good.
That's the definitive statement.
Front row right, Austin.
Urban, I don't know if you call them the pop pass or push pass, whatever it is with Paris. There was some debate about whether it should count as a run or pass. How do you guys count it? What do you
Pass.
What do you like about that play?
Well, it's like any play. It's the who's doing it. For a guy like non-Paris running it, it's okay. With a guy like Paris, we try to design as many plays to have him touch. A little bit like Curtis Samuel a few years ago. He's that checker that you want to touch the ball. And there's no easier way. Now, there's some risk to that, too. But I think our coaches really do a great job picking the time and making sure it's the right time to call it, et cetera.
I guess the point is to mitigate the risk by making it count as a pass in case the exchange doesn't go smoothly.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And you don't have to break when you. That's a great question. We used to do the handoff, you have to slow down a little bit. Here it's just then you run through it.
Second row right, Andy.
Coach, you guys treat special teams a little more special than most programs do. And I was thinking about Chris Olave and those other freshmen. Is that a good way to kind of keep those highly recruited freshmen who aren't playing as much as they're used to engaged, and also for you to evaluate when they're ready to contribute to the offense and the defense?
Good to see you. Special teams is something that I get your question, but that's not the way we treat it. We treat it, you will not play it down at Ohio State until you contribute in special teams. It's just the way, it's 3 phases of the game. There's all kinds of stuff in this room that talk about the plan to win and talk about the gospel of Ohio State football, and it's all about field position, et cetera, et cetera. And from Zeke Elliott to whomever, you're just not playing. And so that's very clear around here. And every great player, I'm willing to say every great player we've ever had started on a special teams phase and had to play well in it.
And the other question, shifting gears, how much did Randy Walker kind of influence the way people play offense in the Big Ten now?
Well, Randy's offense coordinator sitting in that room in there. It's, well, I'll say this, Randy Walker is one of my favorite guys. I love his family, his wife, and I've been to the golf tournament, and yeah, he was an inspiration for me. He actually played against him in 2001, yeah, Bowling Green days. But the way he handled himself, you pick as a young coach, you kind of pick guys the way that they, he's won at every level, and the way he handles himself. Great story, he was an I-formation guy at Miami, Ohio, and they went to Northwestern. He's an I-formation guy, wasn't going well. And they made a transformation with Zach Kustok to change college. Really, you got to give him credit. And a lot of it, they went down and talked to Rich Rodriguez. Great history there about Clemson's offense moving up to Evanston. And they were awesome.
Third row right, Tony.
Urban, yesterday Pat Fitzgerald said because they had the Big Ten West wrapped up for a couple weeks. 2 weeks ago, he spent the week watching Michigan. Last week, he spent it watching you guys. How much of an advantage is that for them, and do you then have to catch up?
That's a huge advantage. I don't know. It is. I mean, that's, I can assure you we weren't watching anything other than our rival. I think that's an advantage. It certainly is.
Do you have to catch up, or is it just what
That's
it
what we're
is?
trying to do right now, yeah, sure. I think the biggest thing is we just played a very physical game, and, you know, our goal, you think what our offensive linemen have done. They played 95 plays against Michigan State, very rugged defense. They went and played 105 plays against Maryland, where the 105th play was as important as the 22nd. And then they just went against the #1 defense in America, a bunch of rugged players. And so the priority is, you know, about freshness and know what you're doing. That's the things that, you know, right when I get out of here, me and Mick are going to plan the whole week to make sure that happens.
Fourth row left, Colin.
When you look at when you look at Haskins' performance after the game, how important do you feel like his when he came in versus Michigan last year? How important was that in his development, knowing what the game was like, in terms of seeing his leadership kind of grow from this game?
Yeah, if you remember, the week before it was terrible. You know, we played, it really wasn't terrible. It started terrible, and then he kind of finished in the rain against Illinois. And that's a great question, because you throw him in that, in my opinion, you throw him in that team up north game last year without fighting through what he had to fight through, which was, he was getting greased on the sideline pretty good after the way he performed. And then he goes in there and really, really rallies it up in bad weather. Do you guys remember that game? Or I'm sure you do. And that is all, that's, you know, filling your toolbox is the term we use around here. And he was filling his toolbox, because he certainly would have not have been, in my opinion, been able to do that in the rivalry game last year. And then obviously the way he's been playing, it's constant experience and filling the toolbox.
And when you see, what does he need to prove, if anything, this week in his first championship game as that leader for this?
To go win the game. You know, offensive football is a 10-yard war, win each war. And however you get that first down, get the first down. And then that's the way we approach it.
And final questions. Second row, Rob.
Urban, you've done this a long time. There's this idea of playing to the level of your competition. If you look at results this year, it could be argued there's been some of that. Is it an extra challenge when you have superior talent, when guys are just better than the guys across from them, to keep them at a level?
It is. I would not put this in that category, though. I mean, they won 15 out of 16 Big Ten games. You know, you watch them play. They're very, you know, they're not averaging 55 points a game, but they're very productive. I think they only have 2 fumbles lost the entire year. Kicking game, very sound at what they do. I mean, so, yeah, we play at the level of competition. That happens sometimes. You know, you'd like to not have that happen, but it does. That certainly is not this case. And I've already talked to a lot of our players, and the greatest thing about this day and age, where it was hard 20 years ago, it's all digital video that's on your iPad like that, and they're watching it, and our players already reaction of coming and goes, wow, especially their defensive front. And I don't know if that number 2 is going to play, but he's a dynamic player, and their quarterback's outstanding.
I know you don't talk playoffs, but you realize how important it is to put back-to-back Michigan-type performances together?
They've rushed 12 times in punt rush, and so we got to be prepared. They skinny the short edge too, so we have to be really sound on that.
Last thing, piggyback on Tim's question, no disrespect, but you're 7-0 against Michigan. There's speculation out there. Will you be coaching Ohio State next season?
I plan to coach, and their kickoff team is very good too, and they really understand contain and all those type of things. Have a great day.